If you look at the smartphone market in 2025, it's hard to ignore how aggressively OPPO pushes the boundaries of design and mobile imaging. Over the last few years, the brand moved from being the colorful mid-ranger company to one of the most technically ambitious players in the entire Android ecosystem. And this shift isn't marketing hype, it's backed by real hardware, custom image processors, brighter LTPO displays, faster wired and wireless charging, and some of the most efficient chipsets OPPO has ever shipped. So today we're looking at the OPPO models that genuinely stand out in 2025, the ones that balance power, camera innovation, and long-term usability instead of relying on flashy specs alone. No overpraise, no empty promises, just a clear, expert breakdown of what OPPO actually does best this year.
The fifth spot goes to the OPPO A5 Pro, a model that proves you don't need a flagship price to get a surprisingly capable 5G device in 2025. It's built around the Dimensity 6300, a 6nm chipset that pairs two 2.4 GHz performance cores with a power-efficient cluster, so the phone feels noticeably quicker than most entry-level competitors. The 6.67-inch IPS panel isn't about pixel density, it's about clean brightness and a stable refresh handling that keeps everyday scrolling smooth even at a modest 720p resolution. What really helps the A5 Pro stand out is its storage and endurance package: 256 gigs of built-in memory, 8 gigs of RAM, plus a micro SD slot for expansion, which is rare in this segment now. And while the camera system is simple, the 50-megapixel main sensor delivers solid daylight shots thanks to OPPO's updated image pipeline in Android 15. Add a surprisingly broad set of global 5G and LTE bands, dual SIM flexibility, and you get a budget OPPO that actually feels ready for long-term use, as long as you're not on a CDMA carrier in the US.
Taking the fourth position is the OPPO Reno13, a model that essentially closes the gap between upper mid-range and full-on flagship behavior in 2025. The moment you pick it up, the first thing that stands out is the display. A 6.59-inch AMOLED panel with a crisp 2760 by 1256 resolution and 120Hz refresh rate. It's reinforced with Gorilla Glass 7i, so the device handles daily wear far better than earlier Reno generations. Inside, the jump to the Dimensity 8350 is what transforms the user experience. This 4nm chip mixes one 3.35 GHz performance core with 3 more high-clocked A715 units, giving the Reno13 a level of responsiveness usually reserved for far pricier devices. The 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage eliminate bottlenecks altogether. And the camera system is genuinely well-balanced. A 50-megapixel main sensor with OIS for stability, a clean ultra-wide module, plus a surprisingly sharp 50-megapixel front camera that benefits from OPPO's updated imaging stack in Android 15. Add wide GSM and 5G band support, but no CDMA, and the Reno13 becomes one of OPPO's most complete all-rounders this year. The third place goes to the OPPO Reno13 FS, a device that targets users who want big storage, stable performance, and a more traditional Reno experience at a friendlier price point. The 6.67-inch AMOLED panel runs at a clean 2400 by 1080 resolution, giving you sharper detail than the A-series devices without going overboard on power consumption. It pairs well with ColorOS 15 on top of Android 15, where animations and transitions feel consistently smooth. Inside, the Snapdragon 6 Gen 1 may not be a performance monster, but its 4nm design and the combination of 4 A78 cores at 2.2 GHz give the phone a level of responsiveness that's easy to rely on. The real highlight, though, is the memory configuration. 12 gigs of RAM and a huge 512 gig storage block, plus a micro SD slot, a combination you almost never see in 2025 mid-range phones anymore. The camera setup is practical rather than flashy. The 50-megapixel main sensor with OIS delivers dependable shots in daylight. The ultra-wide keeps colors reasonably consistent, and the 32-megapixel selfie module is sharp enough for social content. Add full GSM and 5G support,
a slim 7.8mm frame, and the Reno13 FS positions itself as the most storage-rich Reno in this entire ranking.
In second place sits the OPPO A6 Pro, a model that pushes the A series far closer to mid-range territory than its price suggests. The phone centers around a 6.57-inch AMOLED panel with full HD resolution, wide color coverage, and that deep contrast you simply can't get from IPS. It's a noticeably more premium viewing experience compared to most budget OPPO devices, especially when paired with ColorOS 15's smooth motion handling. Performance is handled by the Dimensity 6300, the same efficient 6nm chip found in the A5 Pro, but the A6 Pro feels tighter and more responsive thanks to OPPO's more aggressive optimization in Android 15. Everyday apps open quickly, heat stays under control, and the battery drain is predictably low. The 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage with room for a micro SD card give the phone just enough headroom for long-term use. The camera system remains simple but surprisingly reliable. A 50-megapixel main sensor with phase detection delivers clean shots in daylight, while the 16-megapixel front camera holds detail well enough for video calls and social content. Add broad GSM and LTE support, full 5G compatibility, and a polished stellar blue finish, and the A6 Pro becomes one of OPPO's most balanced, affordable phones in 2025.
Claiming the top position is the OPPO Find X9 Pro, the model where OPPO finally leans fully into next-generation hardware instead of incremental upgrades. The 6.78-inch LTPO AMOLED panel is one of the sharpest on any OPPO phone to date, with a 2772 by 1272 resolution, billion color coverage, and adaptive refresh control that shifts from 1 to 120 Hz depending on the scene. It looks premium in every environment, from HDR content to outdoor sunlight. But the real leap is inside. The new Dimensity 9500 built on a 3nm process introduces OPPO's custom C-Series CPU layout. A 4.21 GHz ultra-core, 3 high-performance 3.5 GHz units, plus 4 efficiency cores. Combined with 16 GB of RAM, the X9 Pro delivers flagship-level speed and thermal stability even under sustained load. ColorOS 16 on top of Android 16 feels tighter than ever, and OPPO promises up to 5 major updates, something the brand rarely offered in earlier generations. The camera system was where the phone clearly separates itself from the rest of the ranking. A 50-megapixel main sensor with a huge 1.28-inch footprint, a 200-megapixel periscope telephoto with optical zoom and stabilization, and a precise ultra-wide module create a setup that handles bright daylight, night scenes, and zoom shots with equal confidence. Even the front camera is a 50-megapixel PDAF unit, rare for any flagship. Add 512 GB of storage, full 5G band coverage, a sturdy titanium charcoal frame, and refined weight balance, and the Find X9 Pro becomes not just OPPO's best phone of 2025, but one of the most technically complete Android flagships of the year.
And that wraps up the most relevant OPPO smartphones you can actually rely on in 2025. From budget models that squeeze every drop out of efficient chipsets to the Find X9 Pro pushing flagship hardware into new territory, OPPO's lineup this year is far more balanced than it's ever been. The key is choosing the device that matches how you use your phone. Whether you want long-term software support, big storage, camera versatility, or simply the best performance per dollar. If you want the full specs or updated prices, all links are waiting for you below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next ranking.